Hello, Camp Pros, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. My name is Travis Allison. I run the Summer Camp Professionals group and a bunch of other stuff that's going on right now that is timely related to Slack in the industry. And I am super excited to kick off our podcast here today.
Hi, my name is Dan Weir. I have over 20 years experience working in camping. A lot of that was at YMCA camps, overnight camps and day camps. I also am on the ACA New York, New Jersey board, and I'm the president for the New York State Camp Directors Association.
And my name is Gabrielle Rail, and I'm one of the camp directors of Camp Waro. Camp Waro is an all-girls camp situated in the Laurentian Mountains of Quebec, and we focus on creating a positive female community, and we do that in French and English.
My name's Joe Richards, and I am the executive director at Pierce Williams, which is a summer camp and retreat facility and part of the United Church of Canada's larger camping network. And we provide all of our programs in English.
Well, welcome. It's so great to have the whole original team here for this show. Today we're talking about a topic that Gab suggested, but has also been a bee in my bonnet. And that is talking to our staff about the virus and what that means, and be connecting with them about their reality as young adults living through this thing that no one has any experience with. And for me in particular, I have been really concerned about teens and how camps are connecting to their teens. I think we're doing a great program at what camp people would consider the easy stuff, looking after young kids, providing games and stories and songs and all of those stuff. But I'm worried about how we deal with teens, and that really extends up into the young adults. And really, it's personal for me. Had I, as a young adult, if I didn't have camp every summer, I don't know what would have happened to me. And that concerns me that there are other Travises in this world who rely on camp to make it through a year, and they may not have that this year in the form that they're used to. So we wanted to talk about what that means. Gabble, what was it for you that made you suggest this topic?
Similar to what you're talking about, Travis, we've talked about that in the past, and you've been great at mentioning, what about the teens, not just during COVID, but in any other situation. And it really had me thinking also about our staff members. And for me, I'm concerned about them because a lot of them are in university. They're working through their papers right now. And at the same time of doing that, they're thinking about their education, they're thinking about their grades, and they're thinking about what's next, what's coming this summer. And some of them are living alone. Some of them are moved back home with their families, which could be a positive or a negative situation. But more importantly for me, these are the people that care for our kids. And I think a lot of camp directors put a lot of energy, hopefully, into their staff training to role model how we care for our children. And so we care for our staff during staff training. And we need to role model to our staff members right now what it's like to care for them and to put them at the forefront of our minds. And I know that a lot of us are trying to save our organizations and our businesses and trying to make time for that. But we have to make time to show that we care for that they are a vulnerable group.
Joe, you've done a few things recently to intentionally speak to your staff about camp and all that, and you're kind enough to share that on a show. But I wonder if what's your philosophy behind that? What's your thinking going into preparing something well, you do two things. You've done a formal presentation to them, but you've also done a Q&A for you as well.
Yeah, we did we posted a letter on our own internal Slack, just a modified version of what I gave to the board, right? And the best analogy at that point, I've come up with lots since, but was this idea that there's, Robert Frost, there's two roads in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. Well, we all decided that we would take a machete out by no selection of our own and just strike a third road that didn't exist. So we have no map for this. when we talk to staff, and I said this or the last episode, right? Like that they just don't seem to have grasped what this could mean for their summer. And I still, what I'm sensing is that they're still at that point. My philosophy is to be brutally honest, which is the way that I go through a lot of life. But the brutal honesty is that we don't know. I recorded a video today, whether I do that one or a different one, but I recorded one for our camper parents to just be like, this is what we know, and this is what we don't know. But when you start talking in those terms, you realize at this point on April 15th of 2020, we don't know a lot. And we have nobody who's giving us answers, and we have I don't even know the questions that some of these parents want answered. And so with the staff, the philosophy is just to be honest with them. So we pushed our spring pet staff start dates back just today. So they were going to start May 1st, but if our state of emergency in the province of Ontario is until now May 11th or May 12th, right? So I've pushed them back to after the holiday weekend for us in Ontario. And I think it's just this honesty saying, like, I don't know. And if you find us moving your start date back and you want to go look for another job, we get that. No, we're not going to take that as a slight of us, because we can't guarantee at this moment in time, we can't guarantee you anything. We can't guarantee that the medical officer's office is going to let us open this summer. We can't guarantee that you would be ultra safe at camp. It'd be as safe as we can be. We can't guarantee that there wouldn't be that there's going to be another outbreak, because all of those things are out of our control. And so my philosophy is just to be honest with people and say, we're struggling, and we know you're struggling. But a lot of the youth, and I was saying this to Butter today, Butter's my camp director. That's her camp name, not her real name. But if I have another kid, I'm going to name them Butter. What I was saying to Butter today is, she thinks, and I think, that planning for camp for our young adult staff, our CITs, and ours are young. So our CITs are 14, 15, and our staff are 16. Planning for camp, like going away from school and just getting stuff ready for camp, is getting them through this more so than if they didn't have something else to do. So who am I to break, to take that away? Yep. Like I have and I said this last time, my daughter is supposed to be a CIT. Like, who am I to say that your CIT summer is shot? And she's actually said, well, if camp doesn't run, because I've said it enough times, she goes, can I still make farm camp happen? And I was like, yes, you can make farm camp happen, and you can do daily live streams of seeds and watching seeds grow. And she's worked it into her school programming for one of the programs she's in. I'm like, that's awesome. But it's just, we can't handle our young people with kid gloves, right? There's so many other things they worry about. I don't want camp not running to be a surprise for them, or I don't want them to not know that by coming to camp, if camp runs, there's going to be a ton more work to do. Not for us, there's not a ton more work, because we've hit a lot of the cleaning stuff, but I don't know that parents are going to want to send their kids, but who knows?
Joe, I just I think you really hit on something of this planning for camp being a crutch for people. I think it's easy if you have been experiencing the industry for a while, if you're experienced with risk management, if you've seen other viruses at your camp, like the norovirus or other things like that, for you to immediately go down the risk rabbit hole of safety and how am I going to do this and what is the right thing to do. And meanwhile, you've got staff that have been just dreaming of being that unit leader, right? Dreaming of finally getting to be that junior counselor. And they've had their lives turned upside down for the past few months. And then here you are going to be the one to kind of squash that. Even though you know, that's you having that conversation with them. You think you're being real and transparent and ethical. At some point, you kind of ruin the dream. It's you know, like, and I've had this conversation quite a few times with camp directors actually over the past few weeks. We talk about, like, you know, like we all talk about, is camp going to run? And, you know, some parts of the U.S. we do think camp's going to run, right? And then and if it is going to run, how am I going to keep people safe? And, you know, like that's the question that you need to be able to go to bed at night, you know, like having protocols, but do you put that burden on your staff constantly? You know, we know our staff's anxiety and mental health was fragile. Fragile is the wrong word. Sorry. I hate the negative branding of it. We know that our staff's anxiety and mental health was a topic that they were comfortable talking about prior to this summer, prior to 30 days ago, prior to anybody thinking about the coronavirus. And now that's all this is, right? And like, it's anxiety, it's fear, it's, you know, you scrub your groceries in your garage before you bring them in all the way in the house. Like, you know, like it's paranoia in every sense way. You know, I think that routines matter, and the routine of getting ready for camp, that plays so much into people's development and who they are. And let the government make that decision, you know, let them be the bearer of bad news. You know, unless you really think that you're just not going to run and you don't want to mislead people. You know, I get that too, but like, yeah, I mean, I think people need to prepare mentally for it. Like, they need to know that something that they can look forward to, because, you know, that's what camp is. You spend 9 months looking forward to 3. So sorry, I just went.
Yeah, I think I think that for me, the thing is that there's so much uncertainty, and I think that for our staff members that are planning, they're also aware of the uncertainty, and it's comforting to hear the person in charge to acknowledge that uncertainty and to state it. And I think the thing is that I really feel that a lot of individuals in our industry are so focused on this summer, whether the summer's running or not running, partially running, virtually running, whatever it may be. And what I think is helpful for our staff members is to not limit ourselves to the summer, and to talk about the future of our organization, and to bring them in on that conversation, and to say that your mission, regardless of what the summer is to make sure that this organization runs for another X amount of years. That's your goal. And you want them part of that. You want them to be part of that. And what that looks like, you don't know what that looks like yet, because we are in limbo, and limbo is very uncomfortable. But you want them to know that this is a goal of yours, and that right now we don't know what the reality is. We're planning for many different realities, but one of those realities might be that this summer might not happen. I also think it's important that if your camp has yet to decide, maybe it wasn't your decision, maybe your camp's not running this summer and that was not your decision, or maybe it is your decision. I think it's important for you as an organization to assess when is your go, no go date, regardless if the government's going to tell you yes or no. How much time do you need to prepare? How much time do you need for staff training? How much time do you need as an administration team? How much time do you need to evaluate if your families are interested in participating in your organization? If your staff are still interested, how much time do you need? And let people know when that go, no go date will occur, if you have control over it, and let your staff members know about that. I think it's okay they're already hearing about the uncertainty. And I think they're thinking about it, and it's okay that they plan for the summer, and it's okay for them to know that it's uncomfortable to plan for a summer and not plan for a summer at the same time, because that's what you're doing as well.
Well, and I think that uncertainty actually will help in the end with with a generation's anxiety and stress. I do not think this overall will be a bad thing 20 years from now. Because what will happen oftentimes in life, and I am not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm a camp guy, But what what I sense will happen is that when you experience something difficult in your life that you have no power over, and you realize you have no power over. So the more days we sit here doing nothing, we realize we have zero power over this. I think the more you just come to accept that there will be certain things that you have no power over. And I think that that's one of the things that leads to anxiety being higher, is when people are worried about things but they still think they can control them, right? And the reality is we can't control this. And I think that this will help with resiliency long term, because do you remember that time where we saved the world by staying home and watching Netflix? Do you remember that? Do you remember 2020 and how crappy that year was? Right? I think that camp is necessary. And one of the things, and I'm seeing this, no names because I don't know the names, but on the Summer Camp Pros group right now, people who are dumping all over virtual camp, why even comment on it? Just move on with getting ready for 2021 if that's not your thing. Like, there's no reason for you to be like, well, this isn't happening and I can't get my livelihood through. And well, we're not asking you to get your livelihood through this. Move along, expend your energy on something you can do, which is for you planning for 2021. And right? Like, and I think that everybody needs something to grab onto. And I think that camp, for our youth, Travis, camp is that thing, right? For our camp staff and for campers, any camper who's been at your camp 4+ years, I can say with almost 90 to 95% certainty that they're grabbing onto the idea of camp to help them through this. You know, they might not get to go to grad at their high school, or they might not get to that final year of the final night after the final exam at university. But boy, they know that camp's coming and camp is a good thing. Now, I'm not hiding from them the fact that camp's not coming for some people, but.
Well, let me ask this then, or let me change the focus. Like, it sounds like we'll agree we should be honest with staff, we should be talking about them, we should be connecting with them. But I think for our people, we have the responsibility to show up as leaders for them. I think that there are a lot of camp directors who have not communicated with their staff. They've not been present for them, and for good reasons. I'm not judging that. I don't know what their life is like, but I think it is a responsibility of a camp director to try to get in front of their staff and say, even if I don't know what it is, like, we are in this together. Camp cares about you. All of our people care about you. We know this is hard. We want to provide a place. And I think that's an essential service that camps can provide to their families, but really to their staff as well. And I hope more staff do that, more camp directors do that. But I want to think about what can we do to provide some space for them to listen to them, etc. What are the sort of things that we can do? Go, Gab.
For me, first and foremost, it's information. And it's information in a way that is, I believe in not giving half-baked cakes, if you will. I feel like if you have an idea on what camp might look like if camp doesn't run this summer, but you're not exactly sure and you haven't worked out all the kinks, do not present it, because for me, that just causes anxiety. You expected a cake and you got a half-baked cake, that causes stress. So for me, it's really about telling them the plan that you're working on a plan, but what is the end goal? So for example, our CITs, the reality of our CIT program in my organization is that it has a ripple effect for 5 years on our staff. It could be a positive ripple effect or it could be a negative ripple effect. And I want to make it very clear to my CITs that this summer, there is a possibility that camp may or may not happen. But if it doesn't, it is my utmost intention that we take them seriously and treat them with respect because they earned that position as a CIT. And that my goal is that by the next year, 2021, they will have a green t-shirt, which is a staff t-shirt, basically. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know how we're going to accomplish it, but it is important. And the reasons are X, Y, and Z. So for me, one is to share the importance of why you're trying to create connection. And then two, it's continuity. So when can staff members, CITs, leadership team members hear from you? Is it every day, Wednesday via video? Is it an email? Is it post on a private Facebook group? Is it on Slack? Is it a Zoom town hall that you're hosting with people? But consistency so that people know that you're going to meet and that there's going to be information is important because it's something to look forward to. And maybe it's a little bit of information and then it's fun time. Maybe you're having a bingo night. Maybe you're exchanging, your fave song, whatever it might be. But the consistency, I think, is also important.
What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, it's right. So as Gab was talking, I posted to Instagram a photo of a beautiful view from my camp, my former camp. My camp, it's still my camp, whatever. I was there forever. When I say my camp, that's the one I'm referring to, right? It's funny to be on the alumni side of things, right? And the comment they wrote was, "That's the view I need," right? And like I think everything we're saying is going back to this aspect of community and how you create community. And like I think it's to do what you naturally do with connecting to people will mean more than we can ever know, right? Like I think of our staff, like they might be struggling with coping with this, but all project, because they're all brand managers on social media, that they're thriving and doing well. And I think when you can provide that individuality and that community, that is really when people are gonna feel it, and I just think of like the calls I've ran in the past few weeks. I really feel guilty afterwards when I don't lead with, well, how are you doing? Even this group before, right? Like I logged on today, I started griping, and then I was like, I didn't even ask how you're all doing, and I think just knowing somebody cares about you that isn't your immediate family goes a long way. My child sneaking up on
but I think it's really important,
yeah.
Dan, also to not that you have someone so that you don't always have to be the first person to ask, right? Everybody needs that person who checks up on them and hangs out with them, but you don't always need to be the person who's strong for everyone. And I think that's the illusion that a lot of camp directors have, or people like, is that number twos on the Enneagram always want to make sure everyone else is doing well before they ever think about themselves. And the reality is that is not what anybody's asking of you. If you can't love yourself, how can you love others? If you can't care for yourself. And I think this is the important thing, right? To come into this community, Dan, and just say what you mean and say how you're feeling. That's fine, right? And how are we doing is right? We all need someone that we can go gripe to. I liken this in some way, shape, or form to the funniest person in the world. So what I want you to do right now is think about who's the funniest person you know. So in your mind, you can close your eyes. Who's the funniest person you know? And you have that person. So I have this guy, Tyler, who worked at camp with me. Funniest guy I know. And I realized years ago, well, if I ask Tyler that question, he's going to have someone who's funnier. And if Tyler asks that person the question, they're going to have someone who's funnier. So, the idea is that we all have someone above us who can help us, or who can be that guidance and that strength. And I think that for many of our camp staff, if you've done, and community and connection is the key, right? If we've done the connection and community properly, they're reaching out to each other as well. And they're, and our more senior staff should be the ones who are also, you know, reaching out and helping. So one of the ways we're doing that is Butter is doing staff check-ins on Thursday. So all day Thursday, she'll let anybody call her on Zoom for 20 minutes just to check in. How are you doing? And what's going on? Because right now she's technically furloughed, laid off, and she can choose to do what she wants with her time. She still checks in with me and says, well, I'm doing this today and I'm doing this today. I was like, that is awesome. You are a super volunteer. Good work. But yeah.
But it's giving a campy connection to the people who matter to your organization. It's being sensitive to them. And this is just making time. Like, I think that that's an important piece of things. How do you make time for the people who are important to your organization?
It's funny, you know. So obviously, I got this one sitting next to me right now. This is Ruby, my 6-year-old, right?
Hey,
and May often joins me on most calls, and so you know, with me in camp and my family, I think people don't often get the time that they would expect at more of a family-run operation. Being at a nonprofit and just like having some more stricter guidelines. But these human moments, right? Like this is what I think has been one of the more silver linings of the past several weeks, is that you get to see people's basements, you get to see people's in their, you know, their work pajamas, for lack of better words. You get to meet their kids. You know, like it's I've gotten many emails from people afterwards being like, I just want to let you know, like, yeah. Just getting to see your family made all the difference and made my day better. And I think, you know, it just goes back to the life you could share. Last week was Passover, and I didn't have the capacity to do it. I was actually going to try and run a Passover on Zoom, on Facebook, but I have to kind of protect yourself in this as well too. And I was just tired. I couldn't pull it off. Yeah, I mean, that's how we should be thinking. It's just the things that we normally do. How can we integrate people into them? You know, it doesn't have to be complicated.
And knowing what connection is, I'm just going to share my screen. So we got this from a graphic artist who saw a picture, a screenshot of a Zoom call that we did with our camp staff. And they made this, you know, so this is a Zoom meeting. Here's me. I can tell this is me because I have my yo-yos in the background up here. But it's this idea, we don't remember the days, we remember the moments. We can, you can spend a lot more time, Dan, right? Like, you have kids, and this is great in a way because they're going to remember this month or 2 months or 2 years, depending on how long we have to social isolate, right? They're going to remember this as a time when you were home. And right, there are a lot of silver linings that in the long term, I think will play out as okay. There's a lot of crap that's going to come in the long term as well.
Yeah, and I just want to, one thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned is, you know, like, one thing I always tell staff during the summer when they're emotionally spent, or, you know, like we had previous camp had camp coaches. So they basically were the go-to for mental health for everybody. And they would get taxed, maxed out and taxed. And what I would say to them is you don't owe anything to anyone. You don't, like, you know, like I said to myself, I wanted to do something with Passover on Facebook and Zoom, but I couldn't pull it off, and I don't feel guilty about it. Like, you know, I wanted to do it, but I don't owe that to anybody. So, like, to protect yourself in this is okay, you know, and it's okay to hibernate. It's okay to be on the roller coaster. This is weird and will feel better in hindsight, I'm sure, unless you know, it might not actually, you know, but yeah, I can't reiterate enough that, like, with working with young young leaders that we need to teach them on how to self-care and promote that in all aspects. You know?
I think it goes back to what Joe was saying at the very beginning, which was being brutally honest. And brutal honesty doesn't have to necessarily just be isolated to your organization. Validating feelings and validating your own experience is very reassuring for the people that you're leading. And the first video that I sent to my staff members to talk about what was happening, and this was about, I think it was approximately 4 or 3 weeks ago. I think at one point I just said, I got a little bit choked up and I said, I don't know what to say, team. This sucks. This just sucks. And I wish I could just make it better. And I wish I could just say camp is happening, and I can't. But I know that we're planning, and I know that we're figuring it out. And I know that like I won't stop until we figure it out. So, but it does suck. And the personal messages I got from my staff members were, it was just really nice to hear from somebody in a authoritative position that this sucks, you know? And I think that being brutally honest can include what you're going through and validating the feelings that they're going through, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, that's helpful. And being stoic it's not time to be stoic. We can be strong and we can do our jobs, or what if you're figuring out what your job is right now, doing the part of that job, but you don't have to be stoic.
Yeah, I think that, Gab, I think that's one of the things that I've always struggled with, is this idea that when are you not the anchor? Do you know what I mean? Like in an organization, there's an anchor, and when is a good time to tell my staff that there's days where I just want to go home and crawl into bed and fall asleep, right? And tell myself stories to fall asleep, right? When is a good time to share how broken up I am about this? Because sometimes, and I think that's really depends on who you're dealing with. Sometimes what they need is for you to be the camp director in a crisis, which is my memory of this, having been a camp director, is when a storm blows through, close to tornado on Lake Temagami, and stuff or on Canoe Lake, and like literally canoes are flying through the air. That is at no time to share how scared I am about going out and getting everyone to safety, right? Like that is about giving instruction, you do this, don't ask questions, go, right? And so there's that sort of feel in an emergency, and you can debrief that after and say, I'm sorry if you thought I was a dick, but we got all the boats back and nobody died. This is a wholly different crisis that's just going and going and is nowhere near done. The fact I have 2 board members who have presumptive cases of COVID-19, right? So 2 out of 8 of my board members. And it's one of these things where you're just like, yes, I know the right people, and teaching young people that it's okay to be vulnerable and that it's okay to ask the questions is great. I just don't know when do I let them see me cry, Gab? When do they want to see Joe cry? When do you want to see Joe cry?
I won't answer
when
that
Joe
question.
Needs to cry.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
And the thing is that there's a great psychologist, a child psychologist by the name of Donald Winnicott, and he came up with the theory of the good enough mother, or the good enough parent, if you will. And he said that, so many times parents, especially mothers, trying to be so perfect cleaned house, perfect birthday parties, perfect, et cetera. And what he evaluated is that what children need to feel solid and comforted is a good enough parent. And we are parents in some ways to our community. And the reason also why he came up with this theory is that the pressure of being perfect is actually crippling, and it's counterproductive. And to Travis's point, when you need to be is important. And you and I are very different leaders, but we both care immensely about our staff members, and that care comes through, and that's what's important. And so when I feel it's right to say to my staff, it sucks, it's probably right. And if I messed up, then I will go back and say I messed up, but we're living through a pandemic. These aren't normal times. And that's the pressure we need to sort of alleviate. And Travis had said a couple of weeks ago in one of his Instagram posts, which are very helpful, by the way, he had talked about KIP, kindness, intentionality, and patience. And this is something that I've been bringing up to my leadership team that have been feeling pressure to have answers. And I feel that pressure myself, but we need to be kind with ourselves. We need to be kind with others. We have to be intentional about our messaging, and we need to be patient. But more importantly, we have to be patient with ourselves. We're not going to get it 100% right. And our staff can understand that. We can tell them that. I'm not going to do this 100% right, but it's okay. It's all right. We're in a crisis, and it's not just a flash in the sky of a tornado with canoes flying everywhere, and then we deal with it in the moment. This is a continuous experience, and so we're going to mess up a bit, and we're all going to mess up a bit, and there's going to be forgiveness in that. Our end goal is that we're together as a community, and we're being intentional about that.
For sure. Travis, I need to sneak out, and I'm not really sneaking. I need to leave. So,
okay.
Can I share my
I'll
tool?
do your tool for you.
You'll do my tool. Perfect.
I want to wrap up the discussion. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe, for being here, and we'll look forward to the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, man.
Hi, Joe.
Dan, I feel like you had a thought.
Yeah, no, just let's talk about the ugly scenario. Like you can't,
Yeah.
you know, camp's not going to run, right? Like you're
Right.
getting ready for that. I just can't reiterate enough that asking consent when giving people information, saying like, is this a good time to talk right now? You know, like you might, I know people whose family members have died already, right? So like you might not know what's going on in their head, and frankly camp might not be the biggest concern at the moment, or just that one more thing is gonna push them over the edge, and they know it, and they'd rather just hang on to the delusion that camp's gonna run one more day, right? So like ask consent before you go further. The second is give as much detail as they want to know. Some people want to know a lot of detail, other people want to trust you and not know the detail. You don't have to pull back the curtain all the way, but you should give them the option to pull back the curtain. I know for a lot of people, detail helps, information helps process and helps understand. At the same point in time, sometimes hearing certain details at the wrong moment, well, it could be a set off. So that, you know, by asking consent, you can say, yeah, I would love more detail. Just, can we talk about it next week? I need some time to process what this is going to look like so I can actually hear you. Because if you start going down the rabbit hole of, well, then we're not going to be able to afford PPP, and then we're going to have to lower our ratios and all this sort of thing. And they're in the mindset of, my world just ended for the next few months and I don't know what I'm going to do. It's not about you in that moment. It's just not. So I can't reiterate that enough. Consent, and then just checking in with what level of detail they want, and then give it to them. You know, you might have the 17-year-old that really wants to learn from the situation and really wants to understand things, and you know, it's okay to say like that this is a business and you need the money to come in order for it to go back out. I don't think that anyone would argue on that. I think people would argue if they feel like you're taking advantage of them. That's when people do not like capitalism. So, I said the word capitalism. I thought what my mom said to me. My mom's like, "You use capitalism for good." And I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, you owe it to you owe it to people. You just it's going to suck for you, but it'll end up paying dividends, because those people will be the people that come back the next year. They'll be the people that help you fundraise at year end. You know, they're going to be the people that are going to with you to the end. that are going to help get your campers back in the door. So just treat them well on the way out, and give them those options and consent. So, yeah.
When you think about that, Dan, I was talking about this morning on my Instagram video. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot. In relationships, when a crisis happens, you need to have the language to say, I can deal with this today, or I can't deal with this today. And I was thinking about that. For me, it's like, is it a shoulder day or a solution day? So if I'm telling you about this problem that I have, this concern, could be big things that we're talking about right now with our staff, is you need to have some language, which is, of course, consent language. Do I, as the upset person, do I need a shoulder to cry on, or do I need you to help me with a solution? Because, they're often, when things are fresh and new, they're just a couple of shoulder days. Like, I don't need you to come in and solve things for me. I just need someone to listen to me. I need a shoulder to cry on. And it's important to give people the language around that, and then the permission to say, no, today is not a solution day. I don't need a solution for all these things. I just need to vent. I need someone to listen to me. I need someone to be with me, and then we'll have a solution day later. And I think that's a great language to give people, and is part of that consent that you're talking about. Like, this is the thing I need for today. I need a shoulder to cry on, or no, I'm ready. Let's go with solutions. And that might be all within the same day, or different kinds of people are more like, definitely solutions for me, not shoulders, and others are the opposite. But that language around that, I think, helps a bit too. So, open up some space for your staff. That's what we're saying in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
Lots of different ways. Dan, did you have something else you wanted to say to wrap us up?
No, I was just slow with hitting the mic button. Sorry.
Okay, no worries,
So, yeah.
no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let us move on to our tool of the week. For those of you who are new to CampHacker podcast and just running by the topic that we're covering today, we ask each panelist to bring a tool that makes them a better camp director and share that with our audience every time. And Joe, as you heard, had to leave early to go get some dinner with family. And I promised him I would share his tool. So you can go to camphacker.tv/podcast and get the show notes from this episode. This is episode 128. And you'll find, so look this up if you need. Joe was suggesting his tool of the week is the Gripper 3D push block for table saws. As we all know,
cool.
Joe is his hobby is woodworking, and he's very good at it. And this is a safety push block for table saws, so you can check that out there. I'm sure you would have had lots of fun things to say about it. Dan, how about you?
Yeah, so in all this, I'm missing sports a fair amount. And so I was looking for a book, not necessarily about leadership. I ended up finding one. This is Tim S. Grover. The book is called Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable. He is the trainer that trained Michael Jordan, trained Kobe, and trained Wade. And but it's nothing to do with physical training. It's all about mental fitness, which I actually found that I liked having this voice. Everything else I was reading and taking in, it was pushing my empathy to the brim. But this one really, it was just a different voice. There's some cursing in the book. It's very much pushing toughness. But he basically has this relentless 13. I will read you a few of them. He numbers them all number 1 because he doesn't like them ranked. They're all number 1. They're all pushing. So you keep pushing yourself you keep pushing yourself harder when everyone else has had enough. You're not intimidated by pressure. You thrive on it. You know exactly who you are. It's just a different voice in terms of leadership and mental resilience that I appreciate. Yeah, it's just taking my brain off things. So good leadership book, and yeah, that's really it.
Excellent, thank you. How about you, Gab?
Speaking of taking your brain off things,
I love
Apple
it.
Arcade
I love it.
Thank you. Apple Arcade is, you can sign up for Apple Arcade for a month and it's free. And then if you forget to unsign up, then it's $5 that you get charged. But so I did it because I needed a little bit of a distraction. And just before the podcast, we were talking about how I've cut out coffee because my adrenaline is just enough for me to stay awake throughout the day and focus. I found a game that's called What the Golf. And What the Golf is the perfect game for people that do not like golfing or golfing shows. It's hilarious. It doesn't take any time to learn, which I have no patience for in video games. If you have to go through a tutorial, I'm out. So there's no tutorial, and it's been a really nice distraction. And my days lately have felt like camp days, but without the kids and without the fun. So I'm trying to create little mini breaks, and part of those breaks involve What the Golf.
I love it. I love phone games. That's a great one. I have to see if it's available for Android too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. Thank you. My tool is an in-house Go Camp Pro tool. As many of you are also Camp Code listeners with Gab's other show, Ruby Compton, who is also our masterclass provost here at Go Camp Pro, put together this amazing 3 blog post how to do Slack. I think there have been a lot of people who've been introduced to Slack this spring through Camp World because of the Slack that we created for COVID-focused discussion. And so people are diving into it for the first time. And Ruby is so good at it. She's great at building community. She knows all the tips and tricks, and she's put 3 blog posts together of how to do Slack. So if you want that just to keep your year-round team connected, it's a good app for that. That, as you heard Joe say, they have a staff Slack for their summer and year-round teams that they all use, and it is a nice way to manage fun things. And Ruby is really great at finding the fun things that can happen in Slack, and I heartily recommend these. So again, if you go to camphacker.tv/podcast, you will see you'll see those 3 episodes laid out there with great ideas from Ruby. I have spent a lot of my life in Slack in the last 5 years, and there were tons of new stuff that I didn't know. So
cool.
I was pretty excited about that. So I want to thank everybody for being here. If you want to reach out to Joe, he is joe@campisbetter.com. Life is good, camp is better. Halfway between Detroit and Toronto. I could do Joe's whole shtick. I got it nailed. So Joe at Camp is Better, if you have any follow-up questions for him. Gab, how can people find you?
Yeah, so you can check out where I work at ouareau.com, ouareau.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Gabrielle Rail, and Rail takes 2 L's.
Thanks for being here, Gab. I really appreciate it. Dan?
Yeah, you can find me at danlovescamp.com. You can also tweet at me at danlovescamp and email danielweir@gmail.com.
Thanks for being here, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
I want to say that if you want to get a hold of me, it's travis@gocamp.pro. We are online at gocamp.pro on Instagram, and really mostly Instagram and some Facebook stuff. I want to give a big shout out to the camp community, all those people who have volunteered to help out in this crisis, who are helping me coordinate all of the information that's going on. We now have a team of about 16 who are working at least a couple of hours a day on top of their other jobs to make the camp community, to make the impact of this on the camp community be as small as we possibly can. And I am so grateful for them for that. So if you find out who those people are, give them a pat in the back. We also want to thank our editor and producer, Matt Hansberger, for pulling all this stuff together, for pushing us to plan our episodes ahead of time, which is not something that CampHacker has a very good history of doing, and for coordinating these things. So we thank you to Matt. You can find his show notes and all the other episodes at camphacker.tv/podcast. Thanks for the evening, friends.